Do you remember the first trip you ever went on? Every holiday since has paled in comparison to that overwhelming nostalgia. With its retro design and throwback film look, Fujifilm's X100V is the internet's trendiest camera. I was here before the hype. I bought the X100T on that first trip to Japan, then upgraded to the X100F and graduated to the V. Across the span of 3 separate Nippon adventures, these X100 cameras taught me 3 street photography philosophies, but these cameras aren't mine. Not anymore. Turns out I've been chasing a ghost, a fleeting memory of that first shooting experience back at the start. I'm Jack, a scientist and street photographer, and by the time you're watching this, Fujifilm will have announced the successor to the X100V. Am I? And are you over-romanticizing these cameras? How much are you willing to pay for nostalgia? Today I'm going to look back before moving forward, and by the end of this video decide if I'm going to pre-order the X100VI. The fixed 35mm equivalent f2 lens and APS-C sensor of the X100 cameras keeps the whole package small and lightweight. Around 400 grams, not quite pocketable like the Ricoh GR, but light enough to be around your neck without feeling it. In my first outing with the X100T in Tokyo, I would keep the camera in my bag most of the time and only take it out when something was photo worthy. In the end, I just didn't take that many shots because I was looking for the perfect frame every time. I was a complete beginner. Everything should have been photo worthy. The first street photography lesson the X100T taught me was that oddity is king. Imperfection that reveals how a city and its people change over time. Wabi sabi. Nothing lasts, nothing is perfect, and nothing is ever finished. So you need a camera always at the ready to capture the impermanence of moments around you. Having a camera around my neck was a quiet declaration. I am a photographer and I need to get better. Take more photos without preconceived notions about what looks good, and the X100's optical viewfinder really helps with this. You don't get as much information as with an electronic viewfinder or the LCD screen. The white balance might be off, the composition not so perfect, but you learn to fill in those gaps by using your imagination. Your line of sight isn't restricted by tunnel vision of the final exposure, and it's quite a unique selling point for cameras on the market, a throwback to shooting film back in the day. Don't let the X100V's retro design fool you. The optical viewfinder toggles to a bright EVF at the flick of a switch. The manual controls, aperture ring, shutter speed dial, ISO dial all work just fine in complete auto mode. Phase detect autofocus, joystick, touchscreen, decent but not great battery life. This really is an ultra modern camera disguised as your granddad's film camera. Even the last generation, the X100F, is more camera than most people will ever need. That was when processors in Fujifilm cameras started to become more advanced. They were snappier to use, quicker to operate, and the rendering of JPEGs in camera with the film simulations became more feasible. The APS-C sensor paired with an f2 lens gave me clean raw files up to ISO 3200, passable, usable up to 12,800. 2 to 3 stops of highlight recovery. None of this matters if you rely on the JPEGs. When I took the X100F on that next trip to Japan, I'd taken the spray and pray approach. I was getting better at composition, but still not slowing down enough to get better shots. I was rubbish at editing, so shot only JPEGs, thinking the Fuji colors and classic chrome film look would make any boring photo of mine look good. And this is the second street photography lesson I learned from the X100F, the nostalgia effect. Holding on to the past can make us overvalue things that we need to let go of to move on. Relying on the film simulations too much delayed my understanding of color theory. I didn't take the time to learn white balance, contrasting colors, and shadows versus highlights. I just let the nostalgia of the film look in the camera do the heavy lifting. I couldn't tell if I liked a photo just because of its colors, which I had nothing to do with, or if the composition actually works, a part I did have something to do with. And looking back at the X100F photos from that Japan trip, none of them were actually that interesting. This tracks because I spent most of that trip chasing the excitement of the first Japan trip. Could never quite recapture the magic. Wabi sabi. And the ambience wasn't quite how I remembered it. I did have a good time, but couldn't help feeling that something was missing. On my third trip to Japan, armed this time with the X100V, my framing did get better. Even with the wide to normal 35mm field of view, I had gotten smarter. choosing scenes that had more ambience, more visual interest. But it still lacked something. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. The three biggest upgrades from the X100F to the X100V were the new lens, weather sealing, and autofocus. The X100V can shoot wide open at f2 for perfectly sharp close-up results. No more haziness of the old lens. If you buy the right adapter ring and UV filter, the whole camera is now weather sealed against rain and dust. The new sensor and processor meant the autofocus had improved as well. Is its tracking autofocus best in class? No, but the problem with my photos at that time wasn't missed focus, but that I didn't understand the art of focus. The shots were perfectly fine as holiday snaps, but I didn't have a natural point of focus where people should direct their gaze. My point of view as the photographer was nothing special. My shots had nothing to say. I spent the next 3 years trying to find my voice, experimenting with different cameras, lenses, and focal lengths. I figured out what interested me the most. Common thread that binds those of us bound by the 9 to 5. Once I found this focus, I could get an interesting image of commuters or passers-by no matter what camera or lens I used, thanks to the lessons learned from each X100 camera. At this point, I'd accumulated a small armament of other cameras and lenses, so it seemed silly to keep this premium compact around. I thought I'd outgrown it, so I sold it. I chose to move on from the nostalgia. Nothing lasts, nothing is perfect, and nothing is ever finished. And like clockwork, I booked another trip to Japan, and the announcement of the X100VI is imminent. I now know how to pick my spots, both as a tourist and a photographer, and I'm really excited to flex that creative muscle using an X100 camera again on the familiar streets of Japan. The rumored specs of the upgrade don't matter to me at all. More resolution, IBIS, new film simulations. The best ability I'm interested in is availability. I'm pre-ordering the X100VI on launch day because that will be cheaper than finding a secondhand X100V. It's crazy. At least for now. If a whole slew of used X100Vs starts flooding the market, then that's what I'll go with, to pay homage to the legacy of my first and best photography teacher. If the retro look and feel is your thing, you may want to consider manual focus lenses, which can be relaxing and frustrating in equal measure. You'll find that in the next video linked here when it's ready to go. I'm Jack, trying to find the peace in each moment.